GF35F, and I, 36M, had the worst fight ever after couples therapy. TLDR. My girlfriend has become harsh, negative, nagging, and unpleasant since we moved in together, and intimacy has completely ceased. Every attempt to resolve our issues has been met with overwhelming anger. I suggested couples therapy, and in our first session, I explained that it feels impossible to communicate or find a resolution due to her tendency to jump to the worst interpretations of my views, responding with rage until I abandon the topic. After therapy, she lashed out at me for making her feel crazy and broken. When I attempted to calmly explain that this is precisely why we are in therapy, she stormed out. What is a man in love supposed to do? Long version. I met my girlfriend last spring and we started off wonderfully. We enjoyed great intimacy, had numerous delightful dates, shared many affectionate moments, and quickly fell in love. I have some sexual trauma from my past that I have dealt with, and she has her own trauma that her therapist claims she has also processed. Things were progressing so well that we decided to move in together about 4 months ago. Unfortunately, everything seemed to deteriorate from there. First, we ceased all intimate relations. I attempted to discuss this with her, but she only shut me down by saying that she currently lacks a libido. My girlfriend is also coping with significant grief from the loss of 2 close family members in the past 5 years. This profoundly impacted her, and she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder due to it. Since I have trauma as well, I understand and want her to heal. I only want to be intimate with her, so I don't mind waiting. However, this was when I began to realize that our problem lies in our inability to communicate. Slowly, numerous other issues began to arise. For instance, we have several pets, and I prefer to clean the cat litter every day. My girlfriend thinks that cleaning it weekly is sufficient, but we have 3 cats, and I find that quite unsatisfactory. I tried various ways to communicate the need for an easier litter system that would allow me to maintain daily cleaning, but whenever I suggested any changes, she would explode in anger. It felt like I was attacking her, merely for expressing that the current system wasn't working for me because it genuinely was not, as I was the only one cleaning it. She also exhibited a lot of insecurity, fearing that I would think her home was not good enough. This pattern repeated with other matters. For example, we faced a situation where our 2 larger cats were monopolizing food from our 3rd cat, leading to him not getting enough from the automatic feeders. We tried separating the feeders, but the 2 larger cats spent all day breaking into the smaller cat's feeder to access the food. It became annoying and made sleeping difficult, so I suggested to my girlfriend that we switch to a regular bowl for a while. Again, she reacted angrily, implying that I was belittling her when I merely wanted to ensure our smaller cat was adequately fed. Ultimately, she agreed to buy a different type of automatic feeder, but I later realized it was a compromise I shouldn't have made. Within a few days, the larger cats were back to their old behavior and damaging the new feeder. I attempted to address this again, but my girlfriend exploded once more. I ended up relocating the smaller cat's automatic feeders to an office to feed him separately and ensure he gets enough nutrition, but it would indeed be easier with a regular bowl. The larger cats continue to attack that automatic feeder every time it opens. This situation reached a breaking point for my girlfriend, and upon realizing our cat was losing weight, she broke down in tears. I tried to reassure her and help her understand that we need an effective solution instead of relying on faulty automatic feeders. However, she again reacted poorly, insisting she needed them for when she travels. I even offered to cover the cost of a pet sitter while we are away, but this only aggravated her more. Her anger seems to surface in every logistical question I pose regarding our household now. If I ask, "Hey, could you assist me in preparing the house for the dog coming back by helping me pick up nails, screws, or anything that could injure him?" she gets upset and responds in an exceedingly harsh and nasty tone. It has become extraordinarily difficult to hear her speak to me like this and maintain a positive demeanor. I have attempted numerous times using various approaches to stop her in the moment and express that the way she communicates truly hurts my feelings and does not convey love. I've been very direct, extremely kind, tried bringing it up in the moment or the next day, and even been extra sweet in the mornings. Nothing seems to work. My girlfriend has a history of trauma from her family, unresolved grief, and diagnoses for mental health disorders such as anxiety and depression. When we first met, she was in quarterly therapy sessions. I was worried that this level of support wasn't sufficient. 4 sessions a year is inadequate. I encouraged her to re-engage with monthly and biweekly sessions, but I still felt this was insufficient for making any real progress. She eventually found a new therapist and immediately connected with her. I noticed a temporary increase in her kindness and appreciation toward me, but there was still no physical affection, and her anger persisted. After about 12 sessions over the past 8 months, she was assigned to a new therapist specializing in her type of trauma. Unfortunately, she does not like this new therapist, and I fear it will hinder her progress. I also worry that someone with trauma as intense as hers requires weekly sessions, but I suppose I must trust the professionals. Another aspect of concern for me is her approach to psychiatric care. Her psychiatrist was a friend of a friend, and both she and her friends refer to him as a drug dealer. When I met her, she was seeing a therapist only 4 times a year, but was on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SRI, and medication for PTSD. I found this approach highly unethical. SRI often need dose adjustments or changes for different individuals. Without a consistent therapist to monitor this, it is a risky situation. After about 8 months, she finally began to understand that this is not an acceptable practice, and her new therapists are working to ensure she gets an appropriate prescription for her needs. I am concerned that the SRI stopped being effective some time ago and that she needs a change, as her anger has been escalating over time. Now, to the crux of this post. I have reached a stage of walking on eggshells. I do not have a high tolerance for this level of negativity, resentment, and nagging regarding every aspect of daily life. I have experienced significant trauma as well, but I possess the skills I need to cope and communicate effectively with my partner. Her trauma is still a prominent issue in her life, while mine is not. While I am resilient, I am not equipped to endure emotional attacks like this every time I raise a concern. It makes it impossible for me to maintain a positive outlook, and optimism is vital to my well-being. Continuous negativity and resentment are unacceptable to me, and when I inquire about what is wrong, I am met with either further rage or silence. I had essentially given up on sharing my perspective or reacting to her anger, but of course, that did not eliminate her frustration. It simply created another reason for her to erupt, questioning why I wasn't responding quickly enough. I realized some time ago that I have reached my breaking point. Last year, I did not receive a promotion I was hoping for, and I have faced numerous health issues directly linked to stress. Shout out to those who experience canker sores or hemorrhoid complications due to stress. My girlfriend seems to sense my unhappiness, but she is not connecting the dots to see that she is contributing to it with her anger. Currently, her view is, stop being frustrated and stressed, that only stresses me out, which sounds terrible when I write it out. I asked my girlfriend if we could please pursue couples counseling. After a few weeks, we managed to schedule a session, which took place today. The therapist asked many background questions, and my girlfriend recounted her trauma in a long, emotionally charged narrative. I felt awful for her as her wounds were reopened. When the therapist asked me similar questions, I answered honestly. I do not have unresolved traumas to share like hers, so my response was brief. My girlfriend mentioned that I have autism, which is not entirely accurate. I was diagnosed as high-functioning on the spectrum 15 years ago and recommended to undergo cognitive behavioral therapy. It is not a significant impairment for me. I view myself somewhat like Nathan Fielder. I have accepted this aspect of my life and have grown comfortable with it. However, my girlfriend tends to amplify my diagnosis, which makes me regret ever sharing it with her, since people can be quite cruel if they know someone is on the spectrum. Thankfully, this was in a clinical setting, so I clarified that I am high-functioning and use cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to manage my social symptoms, and the therapist quickly understood and moved on. The therapist inquired about the purpose of our visit, and we both expressed concerns about communication and intimacy. I emphasized that I wanted to prioritize resolving our communication issues first because of the escalating anger. If I am provoking her to anger just by discussing basic household matters, it seems impossible to tackle other issues. My girlfriend didn't provide specific examples, but acknowledged that she is often in fight mode. I also expressed that her harshness and declining mental health make it increasingly challenging for me to be a supportive partner. I am managing all chores, supporting her through anxiety and panic attacks, caring for our pets, and still engaging in activities we used to enjoy together, such as going on dates, working out, and taking vacations. She often cannot participate due to mental health days spent resting or sleeping, and if she does start something, she rarely finishes it, leading to her becoming overwhelmed. This leaves me feeling overburdened, and asking for help feels like a gamble that could result in her lashing out. As a result, I frequently forego requesting assistance because it is quicker for me to handle things myself and deal with my exhaustion than it is to risk a confrontation. The therapist asked if either of us exhibited obsessive-compulsive behaviors. I responded no, while my girlfriend said yes. I attempted to clarify that I do not have a diagnosis of obsessive-compulsive disorder, but the therapist noted some obsessive tendencies without it being a full-blown condition. My girlfriend elaborated that she finds me obsessive because I strive for perfection. I tried to convey my point of view, indicating that I don't desire perfection. I merely want our living situation to function effectively for both of us, and I believe decisions should be made collaboratively. I used the examples of the litter box and automatic feeders to illustrate that I don't need things to be perfect, simply that we should address known issues when they arise, rather than categorize them as obsessive traits that could be tackled through effective communication. The therapist acknowledged that my girlfriend had lived independently for a long time, making it challenging for her to understand some of my household concerns, which is a valid point, but we must recognize that we are now cohabitating and need to find common ground. I found this response reassuring, as it signified that this therapist understands the need for effective communication and compromise. The session ended shortly thereafter, with the next appointment scheduled for a month later. We then went to the gym before returning home. Before going to bed, she exploded at me, accusing me of making her feel crazy, claiming I hadn't told the therapist about my autism diagnosis, and questioning, "What are we doing here if my house isn't good enough for you?" I attempted to speak calmly and explain why I believe our conversations turn toxic. She interrupted, exclaiming, "All I hear is that I'm toxic." "So I am toxic. You're saying I'm toxic." I tried to clarify that we can both contribute to a toxic discussion without labeling one of us as toxic. She would not accept my point and stormed off. I have chosen to sleep on the couch tonight. It is deeply ironic that we began couples counseling specifically to address communication issues, and yet we have immediately failed. I am genuinely concerned about this situation. I do not want to spend a month in a hostile environment. I am a laid-back individual, not built for drama. But I also feel quite pessimistic about my girlfriend's willingness to make any progress without the therapist physically present. I have previously tried to discuss her anxiety or depression, but the conversations always devolve into, "You're not a professional. There's no way I'd listen to you." If I attempt to suggest solutions, or, "No, you don't understand. I have severe generational trauma," if I am empathetic. She does not seem eager to sincerely consider my concerns. It appears she prefers to become angered and hurt. She is also progressively pathologizing simple issues. If we need to alter our layout to ensure an animal is getting fed, that is not obsessive-compulsive behavior. That is merely responsible caretaking. If we must change the litter box for easier daily cleaning and ensure our cats have a clean place to relieve themselves, as some of them only use a clean box, that isn't autism. That is addressing a problem. Herein lies my internal conflict. I believe one of the primary aspects of my character, and a reason someone would love me, is my meticulous and caring nature when looking after animals. This is a positive trait that I feel is being weaponized against me. I desire to be with someone who would say, "You care for those cats so much. Thank you for ensuring their litter and food are always in order," rather than someone who says, "Oh, so you think I don't know what I'm doing and I'm a terrible cat parent for not changing the litter? Is that what you're saying? Am I going crazy?" I always assumed that my love for animals, combined with dating another animal lover, would be a positive aspect of our relationship. She expressed that I make her feel broken and crazy. I do not want to induce those feelings in the woman I love. I'm making every effort and need assistance and guidance. I care for her deeply, but I cannot reside in a household where she professes her love yet communicates with me in a hurtful manner. What does it signify if she is indifferent to the pain her words cause me? Update. At 3 a.m., she sent me a long text acknowledging her defensiveness and expressing a desire to improve. I did not reply because I was unsure how to respond without making things worse, opting instead to sleep on the couch. In the morning, she was furious that she had poured her heart out to me at 3 a.m. and I didn't come to bed or validate her. Her text did not contain an apology or a request to join her, nor did it ask for further discussion, and it was also sent at 3 a.m. As a 9-to-5 engineer with 4 pets, I don't believe it is fair to expect me to respond immediately, especially when there is no apology. But I guess that's another unwritten rule of hers I am unaware of. Help. Story 2. Aita, 25M, for wanting to burn the bridges with my girl best friend, 26F. Hello everyone. This is my first time posting in this subreddit. I would appreciate your thoughts, whether positive or negative, on a situation that occurred a few months ago. For context, she is 26 and I am 25. We have been friends since we were 5 years old, or at least for as long as I can remember. Although we were not the closest friends in childhood, we gradually became closer as we matured. 2 years ago, we both started dating different partners, and as we typically did, we would share our relationship experiences, seeking advice from each other and sometimes venting. It was her first serious relationship, so she was understandably very anxious. A lot of feelings were involved, and she frequently called me, requesting to hang out. Often, I had to cancel plans or stop whatever I was engaged in at the time to attend to her calls. This became an issue when my relationship with the girl I was dating became more serious. I fully understood why this could be a problem for my girlfriend, as I was heavily involved in my best friend's life. When I attempted to set some boundaries, my best friend agreed, but the situation did not improve. One day, while spending time with my then-girlfriend, I received a call from my best friend stating that she needed my help and wanted to talk. Although I wanted to assist her, I was with my girlfriend. I reluctantly left my girlfriend to meet my best friend, which understandably upset my girlfriend and created a rift between us that I was never able to mend. I acknowledge that I made a mistake there. The conversation with my best friend turned out to be the same discussion we had previously held months earlier. While it frustrated me, I allowed it to pass, attributing it to her first relationship. Ultimately, her relationship ended, as did mine, due to my poor choices. I was then faced with an ultimatum. My girlfriend asked me to choose between her and my best friend. I selected my best friend since my romantic relationship had lasted just 4 months. I never disclosed this decision to my best friend because I began to reflect deeply on our friendship. I was also struggling personally. I had strong feelings for my ex-girlfriend, and whenever I attempted to discuss this with my best friend, she would deflect the conversation or advise me to move on. This only intensified my resentment towards my choice and her apparent indifference. Months later, my ex reappeared in my life only to ghost me again, and around this time, I lost my grandfather. I was in a difficult emotional state, and during this period, I had issues with my best friend. I was moving out of my parents' home into an apartment with friends and needed repayment for money I had lent her to help with her credit card debt, which I had provided a year earlier. She was repaying me slowly, but there were weeks when I didn't receive any payment. I didn't mind since I wasn't struggling financially, and I considered myself her best friend. However, the buildup of resentment and frustration from my own circumstances led me to angrily demand that she repay the full amount. In retrospect, I could have approached the situation with more kindness, and I am not proud of how I acted. Although she did repay me, she was displeased with how I handled the situation, which is fair. After this, she did not attend my grandfather's funeral, nor did she reach out to see how I was doing. After moving into my new apartment for a month, my resentment grew too overwhelming, resulting in me lashing out and telling her that she had not been a good friend and that I preferred we not see each other for some time. She blocked me on all platforms, and I ultimately deleted her contact number. Fast forward a year later, I was awakened at 2 a.m. by numerous calls from an unfamiliar number. It turned out to be her. She was drunk and crying, expressing how much she missed me, apologizing and wanting to meet up. I believed I had moved past the resentment I had held, or so I thought, so I agreed to meet and reconnect. We spent time together, both apologizing for our past mistakes. However, it wasn't an ideal conversation. I diverted from my true feelings, chose not to place any blame on her to avoid making her feel bad, and instead took responsibility for my actions. I blamed myself for being unkind and on my ex for choosing to hurt me again after I had moved out. I also chose not to mention that she hadn't shown up for the funeral. Eventually, we re-established our friendship and began hanging out again. A few months after reconnecting, she introduced me to one of her friends, a 24-year-old woman, and I must admit that the girl was exactly my type. I jokingly, but somewhat seriously, asked my best friend if I could pursue her. Her reaction displayed her displeasure, and she quickly dismissed the idea. I didn't think much of it at the time. However, as a few months passed, I began to really connect with this friend during our outings, and our conversations intensified. We began texting daily, and I developed a strong interest in her. I hesitated to act on my feelings as I feared upsetting my best friend, given her close relationship with the girl. I decided to discuss the situation with my best friend, which resulted in her expressing discomfort with it. I was quite disappointed. Genuine connections do not often happen for me, so this felt rare. My disappointment grew as she had previously hooked up with one of my close male friends, a situation I had facilitated. I didn't mind their relationship since they were both on the same page, and I just wanted to avoid hearing about it constantly. I expected she would wish the same for me, but apparently not. Since she was uncomfortable with my budding relationship, I opted not to pursue it, not wanting her to lose a friend, especially since she had struggled with friendships with other girls. As my connection with the girl initially stemmed from friendship, I informed both of them that I needed time away to let my feelings dissipate. However, as time passed, my disappointment and frustration continued to grow. I am weary of holding on to this resentment, yet I do not wish to communicate with my best friend at this time. It has been over 6 months, and she has not reached out, nor have I, making the situation appear to be mutual. Am I in the wrong here? I recognize that having a conversation would be essential to moving past this resentment, but what if I simply burn the bridges and choose never to look back?